Okay. Well, that may raise some further questions in future. But many thanks for that. We've now gone to Scott on employment rights.
Yeah, and thank you. It is slightly broader. I think the first question, I think I can predict the answer. So there is a suggestion in the evidence that the app-based companies are focusing too much on their business model and not enough on compliance. I think I predict the answer. Is there any truth in this, that your business model comes before compliance with your local licensing arrangements? I'm guessing.
I can go first. Again, I have a 200-person team, and that only focuses on the UK. 100 people are dedicated to compliance and to safety and upholding our licenses. So I would actually argue the opposite. We have we started talking about national standardization because we have 3,900 individual requirements. We can't not uphold those. We actually are exceeding the standards on all of them, and it requires a significant amount of effort to do that.
And you could say the same as Shamima?
Absolutely. Compliance is super important to us, and there's no trade-offs being made there.
Okay. And so I say perhaps a more legitimate concern is that in many jurisdictions you operate, understand you don't have a physical presence in terms of a person, a contact point. You may have a phone number or an email address, but you don't have a physical person. So what does that mean for interactions with you? If your customer wants to speak to someone face-to-face, or one of your drivers, or somebody from the local authority, or perhaps even your local trade union representation, is that a barrier?
So firstly, we do have local offices. So we have offices in Nottingham.
Are staffed?
Yeah,
okay.
Nottingham, Manchester, Birmingham, and of course London.
In every jurisdiction, sorry?
Sorry?
In every jurisdiction you have an office?
Where licenses require, we have an office, but they're not all manned office requirements. But what we do have, so firstly from a license and a local authority perspective, I think I had mentioned before, on a literal one-to-one basis, we have contacts with every licensing authority. We have dedicated, so firstly, a law enforcement portal, so anybody can ask for information at all times. We have a dedicated email and phone number if there are any questions or from a council perspective. From a passenger and from a driver perspective, we offer in-app, on phone, 24/7 essentially support, especially in cases of emergency. And then I think I had mentioned any complaints or incidents, especially complaints, are resolved within 8 hours. 75% are resolved within 8 hours. So we have a dedicated team ensuring that across all jurisdictions that we're serving both passengers, drivers, and also local authorities.
What about you, Emma? Do you think you'd benefit from having a physical presence in each licensing authority?
We don't think there should be a physical presence in every single licensing authority. We, like Kimberley, have what we call green light hubs that are local to almost every area, and we use those to support our relationships with licensing authorities and compliance, but they're also open to drivers at any time of day to come in and resolve issues. We have a specialist cities team who own the relationships with all of their licensing authorities. They know all of their key and relevant officers. They're often a WhatsApp message away. They go to all of their trade meetings.
Okay.
Sorry, can I pick up on that? Just half an answer on that. And I can only talk about my experience, and my experience in Medway is that there are now less than 400 locally licensed drivers, and that one of the reasons for that is there are several hundred Uber drivers that are operating locally. There is no local licence. Uber are not locally licensed at all. These are drivers that are driving 30 miles outside of London, where they were licensed. So I just I take exception to the fact that not only is there not an Uber presence, but they're not even licensed, which gives significant problems as far as I'm concerned in enforcement and safety.
What would one of your customers do, Emma, if they wanted to speak to an Uber member of staff face to face?
You can call us. We have all of the same.
No face to face opportunity for.
No, not generally, but I think even local operators are covering very large areas. I think, as Mark referred to, there's 300,000 people living in the Medway area, and most of the time, what people want is ease of access. So they want to be able to get to see them via our in-app support functions or on the phone. We have specialist trained safety agents who are trained to help people, particularly when challenging situations or safety events occur, who are particularly trained bespoke to help people who have been victims or what have you. We think it's important is the quality of the interaction and the ease of access and the fact that they can get us any time of day.
Sorry, yeah, no.
I was going to move on to the next question if you want to.
No, go on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Elsie, did you want to come in on one of these
Very
points?
quickly on that point, Emma. Greater Manchester has a population of 3 million people. Do you know how many offices Uber has in Greater Manchester?
I'm not sure, but we do have one very large Greenlight hub.
You've got one office. Do you think that's sufficient?
We do. It's staffed all day. It's open all week. There are round-the-clock services there. It's very large. It's very readily accessible, and we have drivers come in and work with us all the time. Nonetheless, as I say, our cities team, who own all the relationships with their licensing authorities, go out and meet their licensing authorities, and we have people based in Manchester whose job it is to own those relationships, and they do know the people well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Scott.
Okay. So Emma, it feels like in some parts of the UK there's a real saturation of Uber drivers, and there's more and more getting registered all the time. And I guess that's good for consumers because it means when they want an Uber, their 99% chance it's going to come, and it's going to come quite quickly. And it's really good for you as a company because it means that every opportunity for you to earn money is met. And I accept that it's a legitimate aim for a company to make money. But the driver's not paying the price for this because they're competing harder and harder to get rides, and it means they're earning less and less money per hour. So are the drivers paying the price for this business model?
That's not a characterisation I think that we would reflect. What we see and what we continue to see in the UK is that demand for our services continues to grow and grow and grow, and we need more drivers, not fewer, and we see that is likely to be the continued pattern.
So if you include waiting time, are drivers' earnings rising or coming down in relation to inflation?
So we pay drivers for their time on trip, and that will be because...
Waiting time's important, isn't it?
Waiting time is important, but I think the thing that the committee should understand is that quite often what is the case is that drivers are working for lots of operators. They could be working with all four parties here, and they would likely be online on all of those apps all at the same time, and that's good for drivers because they have competition in terms of the offers that are made to them, and we compete, for their time as much as anything else. And we think that gives the best outcome for them and the best flexibility of earnings, and we think they earn well.
Okay. And this crossed my mind earlier when Kimberly was speaking. So if a driver is struggling to earn money on your service, do you have limitations in terms of how long they could work on a shift? Is that a limitation you place in your app?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
we have a 10-hour limitation. Yeah, that's a safety.
But then that driver could run 10 hours with your app and then switch over to Kimberly's app.
In theory, they could do so. I mean, we'd strongly encourage them not to do that. It's important. And
there's nothing to stop them from doing that?
No, there's nothing to stop them from doing that, other than the fact that I guess it's a licensed profession, and they have a responsibility to uphold safe standards and be a safe driver and ensure that they're well rested.
But if your business model was making it harder and harder for them to earn a living, those temptations are always going to be there, aren't they?
We wouldn't accept that it is making it harder and harder for them to earn a living. We think that this style of work...
You don't know if earnings are coming up or down in relation to inflation, including waiting time.
So earnings are broadly as they are. They're £30 an hour on the Uber app when you're logged in. It's very difficult because...
That includes vehicle maintenance and that doesn't include waiting time, so that's slightly misleading.
So the thing to understand is that earnings vary. They'll be very different per trip, per where you're going, area of the country, time of year. It's quite seasonal. And so it's difficult to kind of describe precisely what's going on. We had Frontier Economics, who we commissioned last year to look into this for us. They determined that the average driver that's working sort of full-time or in the region of 30 hours a week is making about £43,000 pre-cost and post-cost about £36,000 as a median. And that is broadly in line with the kind of UK average earnings. So we think that we offer a good opportunity to drivers. That's why it continues to be very popular and more drivers join the app every day.
But, independent analysis suggests that drivers are earning much, much less than that. I mean, but I guess we can disagree with that. So can we move on to deactivation? I think, Kimberly, you raised a good example of when you would deactivate a driver who's accused of not respecting the rights of a disabled person. You said you would deactivate and then you would investigate. And so I guess there comes two questions with that, and I guess it applies to other operators as well. What's the threshold for deactivating? I guess you don't deactivate a driver just because they're talking too much to the passenger. There must be some threshold. And secondly, If that accusation is to be found to be false, that driver's lost earnings, do you compensate them for that?
So firstly, you're right. We wouldn't deactivate a driver for talking too much.
So what is the threshold then?
Yeah, and neither would we deactivate a passenger for talking too much. I mean, these are just thresholds that one wouldn't define. But what we do take seriously are things like fraud and safety incidents. Again, we do have a team that investigates each incident, and any question of whether or not a driver should be deactivated. Firstly, they're both permitted to give, they're encouraged to give evidence or to have the conversation. It's reviewed by a human. This is not an automated thing. We take it very seriously because it is a driver's livelihood. And especially in fraud cases, they have 30 days to appeal the decision. So we put both all of the controls in place to make sure that we're taking a thorough investigation of any of these incidents, and in particular if it's something related to safety and fraud.
So let's pretend the complaint is malicious. You deactivate the driver. Do they get compensation for that?
Sorry, when you say malicious, you mean it's incorrect?
Yeah, so there's a spurious complaint.
If after the investigation it's found to have been malicious.
There's a lot of earnings there, isn't there? And that's unfair on the driver fundamentally.
I'm not aware of cases where that has been that's been the case, but I'm happy.
I think humanity is restored. That's great.
well, again, this is something that we take very seriously, and so we do a thorough review. Again, it's very manually reviewed. We have conversations directly with the driver. We ask for evidence, so we are thoroughly reviewing it. But I can review that and come back with if you'd like a written response on that.
Yeah,
Emma, what would be the threshold in terms of a complaint from a customer to deactivate a driver? Obviously, it's a big step, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important, and we take it extremely seriously because it has an impact on drivers, as it does if we, are not maintaining a safe service on passengers. We have lots of the similar processes as Kimberly described. We investigate the complaint very thoroughly. It's difficult to say what precise threshold is because it varies quite a lot depending on what type of issue we're talking about. It's extremely rare that it's like a one-time complaint, and that's something that we are deactivating for. So usually it's about patterns that we are looking out for that can indicate risk in the future. That said, we take it really seriously. We ask for testimony for everybody involved in relation to that complaint. We look at data that's available to us. We can see a lot in relation to GPS and things that go on around a trip. CCTV is increasingly becoming a very important part of that. And then finally, I would say is that any decision that we do make is appealable. We have, with the GMB, which is our union partner, introduced a review process, either where they can appeal and be represented by their union or through the app in a review centre.
Thank you.
So I think for all of you, are your processes, do they sort of tick the boxes in terms of natural justice? Is it a completely transparent process that who is going to investigate what, at what level, by what time period, what the appeal process is, the time period? Is all of that set out? Can drivers clearly see that? Because I have a lot of constituents who lose their income overnight and struggle to know, or tell me that they struggle to know what the process is to get their activation back and sometimes their licence. Andrew?
Yes, but I think it's important to factor in the licensing authority in this because they are ultimately they license the driver partners, and the relationship with them between the operators and the licensing authority is really important in terms of the information sharing, making sure that they're fully aware of any historical issues. And you're right, taking the decision to deactivate or fully remove a driver from the system is it's a tough decision to take, but ultimately, as an operator, we're licensed for public safety, to be fit and proper in that sense, and we have to always.
Yeah, I'm just asking about your process, your justice processes.
We have local driver teams that will, always get the driver's side of any issue, but ultimately, if there's a concern, there's a
a public safety or passenger safety issue there, we have to take that seriously, and we have to go to the licensing authority to
Yeah,
get
I mean, there's
them to
fraud as well has been mentioned.
Yeah.
But do you set out timescales? Do you set out processes? Are they clear? And do you operate within them? Sort of yes or no, really. Mark?
Yes, as far as we're concerned. I mean, it helps that we know all of our drivers personally, and there is that relationship, so it's a little bit different.
Yes, we communicate with drivers as soon as we have a complaint that might lead to a suspension where we need to investigate, and they will be spoken to and they will have sort of clarity over that process. We have found in the last 4 years where we've had our relationship with GMB that's been a hugely helpful support for drivers who are going through that process as well, and that they can have peer drivers help them with that.
Yes, to echo everything the panel has already said. In addition, we obviously also operate things called drivers' hubs, where drivers can either schedule or be able to drop in at any time to ask questions. We do bolt-on-the-move events where we gather feedback if anything is unclear. And we've got a team that's dedicated to making sure from a communication standpoint we're continually improving our